There's a grief that lives quietly in many older people, a grief that rarely gets spoken aloud. It does not show itself dramatically. It does not cry loudly. It does not plead for attention. It sits silently inside the heart. And most of the time, others do not notice it at all. This grief is not just about loss of loved ones. It is not only about funerals and farewells. It is the grief of fading relevance, the grief of invisibility, the grief of becoming someone others walk past instead of toward, the grief of remembering a life that was once full of roles, responsibilities, and identity, now replaced by stillness and waiting. When people grow old, they do not only lose time. They lose the feeling of being needed. They lose the sense that their presence changes anything. They lose the comfort of waking up and knowing someone expects something of them. And this quiet erosion of purpose creates a sorrow that is rarely acknowledged. Imagine someone who once was the center of family decisions, the head of a household, a worker with skills, a parent with authority, a person with social presence. And now, conversations happen around them. Decisions are made without them. Technology moves faster than their adaptation. Culture evolves faster than their understanding. They begin to feel like a guest in a world they helped build. There is another quiet grief that comes with aging, the grief of memory. Older people carry entire universes of experience inside them. They remember places that no longer exist. They remember streets that have changed. They remember people who are gone. They remember versions of themselves that no one alive now ever met. They live with ghosts of friends, siblings, lovers, colleagues, neighbors. Their life story becomes a library that no one asks to enter. Many older people begin to feel like archives. They hold memories no one requests. They hold stories no one asks to hear. And so they stop speaking about them. The memories become internal companions rather than shared narratives. There is also the grief of the body, a body that once was strong, hands that once built and carried now tremble, legs that once walked far now tire quickly, eyes that once saw clearly now blur, hearing that once caught every word now struggles. And inside that aging body lives the same self, the same personality, the same desires, the same awareness, but now constrained, restricted, limited. Older people do not simply feel sadness over decline. They feel a strange separation between the mind and the body. The mind feels younger than the body allows it to be. There is an internal identity that cannot match the external reality, and that mismatch creates a silent ache. Many older people also carry the grief of friendships eroding. Some friends die, others drift away. Social circles shrink. People stop visiting. Those who once laughed with them around dinner tables now exist only in photographs. And while death is a known part of aging, the loneliness that follows is often underestimated. It is not just the loss of a person. It is the loss of witness, the loss of someone who remembers your younger self, someone who recalls the past with you. Because when you lose those who shared your history, you lose part of your identity. For many older adults, there is grief in watching younger generations move forward. They see their children busy and occupied. They see grandchildren growing up fast. They see careers, relationships, ambitions, responsibilities shaping lives around them. They are happy for them, but also feel themselves slipping into the background. This is not jealousy. It is displacement. They do not want to reclaim youth. They just do not want to be forgotten in the process. And there is a grief of silence. When days pass with little conversation, when the phone does not ring, when rooms echo with quiet, when weeks go by without someone asking for their opinion, their story, or simply their presence, silence becomes heavy. It becomes another form of loss. Another grief sits deeper beneath these layers. The grief that comes from realizing that many of their dreams will not be fulfilled. Dreams that once were possible now slowly dissolve. Perhaps there were plans to travel, maybe intentions to learn something new, maybe hopes for reconciliation with someone estranged, maybe ambitions that were postponed. And now the door to those possibilities closes, not out of failure, but due to time. Older people often confront the reality that life did not turn out exactly as they imagined, and that acceptance quietly stings. There is grief in watching the world feel unfamiliar. technology replacing tradition, communication changing, language shifting, values evolving, the rhythm of society accelerating, and they sometimes feel like strangers in a present they did not anticipate. There is also a grief of patience, because aging teaches waiting, waiting for visits, waiting for health results, waiting for medication schedules, waiting for someone to help with tasks that once were effortless, waiting for energy to return, waiting for holidays, waiting for routine appointments, waiting for life to move. Time slows externally but feels fast internally. There is a tension between internal youth and external aging, between memories and reality, between vitality and fatigue. Yet it is important to say this. The grief older people carry is not only sadness, it is also depth. It is also wisdom. It is also perspective. They have seen enough of life to understand its fragility. They have learned that most worries eventually soften. They have lived long enough to understand the preciousness of moments. But what hurts is that others often overlook their inner world. People see wrinkles, but not history. They see age, but not experience. They see fragility, but not resilience. They see slowness, but not patience. Many older people do not want pity. They want recognition. They do not want to be treated as fragile creatures. They want to be spoken to as equals. They want to be included in life, not simply managed through it. There is also the grief that comes from feeling like a burden, even when no one says it aloud, when they need assistance, when they repeat themselves, when they forget things, when they require care. There is shame sometimes, embarrassment, apology, as if aging itself is a form of inconvenience. That emotional burden is heavy, and it is rarely discussed. But here is the other truth. Inside every older person is someone who once lived with fire, someone who had dreams, someone who fell in love, someone who took risks, someone who made mistakes, someone who laughed so hard their ribs hurt, someone who danced, someone who worked, someone who raised others, someone who survived heartbreak, someone who grew through loss, someone who lived fiercely. Age does not erase the inner self. It preserves it. And to honor that inner self is to bring compassion back into the conversation. Because the grief older people carry does not need fixing. It needs witnessing. They do not need to be told they still matter. They need to feel it. They need someone to ask about their stories, to sit beside them without rushing, to treat them not as old minds in failing bodies, but as full humans with layered histories. When you give time to an older person, you are giving them confirmation that they are still part of the living world, that their presence is still meaningful, that their memories still matter. Sometimes, all someone old needs is a listening ear, a curious question, a hand held, a shared laugh, a gentle acknowledgement. Imagine how healing it could be for someone to hear. Tell me what it was like when you were young. Tell me about someone you miss. Tell me something you accomplished that no one knows about. Tell me a funny moment that still makes you smile. When you give someone the space to be known, you soften their grief. Because the deepest grief of aging is not death. It is being forgotten while still alive. It is being unseen in plain sight. It is being unasked, unheard, unconsulted, unremembered. Older people carry grief, yes, but they also carry treasures. And when we make space for those treasures, something beautiful happens. The grief transforms into story. The ache becomes connection. The loneliness becomes belonging. And maybe the greatest gift we can offer older people is presence. Real presence. Not rushed or distracted, but attentive, respectful, human. Aging is not simply the narrowing of life. It is the deepening of it. The sadness older people carry is part of the richness of their inner world. Their pain exists because they have lived. Their grief exists because they have loved. Their sorrow exists because they have remembered. So when you encounter someone in old age, try to really see them, not as the shell of what they once were, but as the continuum of everything they have ever been. You may discover that the grief they carry contains beauty, and that listening to them may slow time for both of you.